Namaskaram, Raghunath ji. Namaskaram to
Namaskaram.
the office bearers of Utsahin and Padma Shri Dr. Prasad ji, who was my colleague
Yeah,
at ISRO, and then I happened to meet him in Vignan when I went for my TED talk there, and some other guest lecture in electronics and MBA departments. When we talk about rational scientific thinking, the first name traditionally which come to anyone who is a reader is the Greek philosopher Socrates. It's 399, nearly 400 BC, that's the time. The death sentence was given to him for being a rational human being. So what is traditionally in belief? If somebody questions, he becomes an enemy to the irrational society probably. Society sometimes is irrational because most of the faith systems which we have today started before the science has sprouted. Unfortunately, most of the scientific, the so-called scientific, the so-called rational, the so-called people who call themselves as scientific, they also have some irrational, the faith system which cannot be logically explained. Human beings are such. Probably they speak something, do something. That's why we have only teachers, but no acharyas and that sort of people who understand such philosophy. The court has, or for Socrates, there were two charges. One was it's a criminal charge where he made mockery of the divine gods. Can you imagine? And he did not acknowledge the wordings of the god. As if he is introducing new deities was the blame on him. So he is one of the greatest personality when we talk about rational thinking, epistemology. I'm a philosophy student. I'm a science communicator. So when we talk about philosophy and science goes together, because when science you explain to somebody in the words of understanding things, that becomes philosophy. That's why even if you take a PhD in Doctor of Mathematics, PhD, Doctor of Philosophy is what is given. So people may think when you talk about science, why you are talking about philosophy. Soon after this lecture, I have another session on philosophy family of India. So I am talking about Shraddha, concentration. When you talk about concentration, that becomes science. When you talk about Shraddha, Dhyanam, Samadhi, it becomes religion, or maybe spiritual, or maybe philosophy, or psychology. So all of them goes together. But for a lower level people, all of them are different compartments. When you join together, it becomes the higher thoughts. So Socrates had that higher thought. So he was able to compartmentalize and rationalize. And that is what each one of us have to grow into. So scientific temper has to be understood in slightly different style than thinking science and experiment is scientific temper. It's not. It's a day-to-day attitudinal change. In the recent past, August, I don't remember exactly, I think August 20th, 2013, one of the greatest scientists of India, very recently, almost 10 years back, a Maharashtra person who is called Narendra. We have two great Narendras. One is Swami Vivekananda in the east, and we have in the west Bombay also one Narendra, who was famous for scientific temper. And what is that scientific temper? And what is that his contribution? he made a Maharashtra Blind Faith Eradication Committee. And that in Hindi or Sanskrit together it is called Maharashtra Andha Shraddha Nirmoolan Samiti. Andha Shraddha, your blind focus. Your focus is there, but it is blind. That means you are an atheist. No. You are not an atheist. You are blind in that also. Your every faith is blind. So what is required is rational. Atheists also have rational thinking. Religious people also can have rational thinking. So don't think that scientific temper means you are against religion, you are against the concept of God. But concept of God in a higher level is Advaita Vedanta. That is to be understood as scientific. Shankara was a great scientist in that context. So, India, maybe unofficially, there are a lot of organizations who believe that, or maybe those organizations believe that the National Scientific Temper Day is August 20th. And I belongs to that family. My brother was the president of Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad. And from my childhood, we used to have that scientific temper being part of every activity. We had a drama, the road shows, explain what science is. My father-in-law was also an activist there. They are called activists. Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad. But that was in early 90s. It started in 1962, before my birth. And I remember being part of it from 82, maybe 20 years later to 10, 20 years. But today it has become politically high. So any movement in India gets into the hands of politics, then the real purpose is lost. So I pity on such activities. So that is also irrational. Sometimes politics becomes blind politics. So rational is not there. So politics also can be called as irrational. So what is not rational is what is not scientific. So politics sometimes becomes non-scientific. Otherwise it is political science. If it is done for the purpose of human being, it is called political science. So, okay, let me come to the definition of what is scientific. I stay in Telangana and I keep traveling to most of the places in and around Andhra. For last 30 years I am here. There is a great university in the name of a great chemist. Anyone here who could answer that? Anyone here who could answer that? There is a great university where you can be proud that Telugu speaking people.
Great university.
Under the name of a great chemist. When we talk about science, scientific, his name should come first. Anyone?
Acharya Nagarjuna.
Wonderful, Ravi Shankar. Acharya Nagarjuna. He is called an Acharya. He is an Acharya. Yadyadajaradisrashta tattadevayatarochana sayat pramanam gurude logastadanuvartade. What is Nagarjuna's speciality? Nagarjuna said, it is not what you practice, what Guru says. That need not be science. Lokanam upakaraya etat sarvam pradarshidam. What cannot be experimented need not be nonsense. What can be experimented need not be science. Sakshat anubhavair drushto. What you can experience is science. Sakshat anubhavair drushto na sruto na guru darshitaha lokanam upakaraya etat sarvam pradarshidam. If it is useful for human being, he was a great scientist. Scientist of chemistry, scientist of medical science, scientist of fertilizer. That is why you will see fertilizer name Nagarjuna fertilizer, Nagarjuna chemical shop, Nagarjuna medical shop. But you will not see Nagarjuna chicken shop and mutton shop and barber shop. That is because he has been recognized by everyone in this world as scientist. So if some 13th century great scientist, and we have a university and people don't know what is his contribution. He defined what is science. He defined what is laboratory. How much fees is to be paid. How much salary is to be paid to a chemist. To a helper, how much salary is to be. So economics was also involved in that. So that is scientific temper. When you make an organization, understand every rational around that. So it is science. It is speaking science. Fearlessness is also See, you have to speak something carefully, it is science. If you speak carelessly without understanding, see, people teach in the academic institution. I have trained more than millions of teachers in this country and outside country also. I keep saying teachers are actually don't understand the subject, but they learn it and speak. Don't learn and speak. Understand. When you understand, you speak fearless. And there is a morality in you. So speaking fearless, speaking with morality is scientific thinking. No doubt. Today morning somebody asked me from Africa, do you believe in God? I said, I don't believe. Do you believe this is a pen? I don't believe. I know this is a pen because I can test with that. So knowing is not believing. Believing is at the first level. Knowing has to grow. LKG you can believe. This is a dog. This is a elephant because you are seeing pictures in the book which you are learning. But when you come up at the PG level, you must be able to realize. That is what is realizing God. So scientific thinking changed the world. When you ask questions, I keep saying 5 wife and 1 husband. Good enough. Where, when, why, what, all start with the www. And 1 H, how. If you can ask this, you have scientific temper. So what is scientific temper? Very easy to remember. Why, where, when, what, all ask this question. Who, when, and then how. And then thinking will come. Your brain starts functioning. The thoughts will come. Whether answer comes, whether it leads to an answer, doesn't matter. See, such thoughts only made. I keep saying, scientific temper starts with 3 apples in the world. So 3 apples made people to think. The first apple was the Adam and Eve story, you know. There was somebody who ate an apple with a question, why should not I eat? What will happen? Bible writes you should not eat. But there was somebody with courage, fearless. If I eat, what will happen? That is how you remember the concept of that. That's why apple is called the fruit of creation. That's how the creation started. The God had created a wonder with 1 apple. So the first was 1 apple. Second apple, all of us know. Newton was sitting and apple has fallen. Luckily he was not in Kerala and coconut did not fall. Otherwise he would have been finished. Right? So apple has got a second apple. That is the second apple. And what is the third apple? Third apple is everybody is on apple today. Without apple nothing works. Right? So everything is apple. So we have to salute that Steve Jobs where he has given apple, the third apple, which changed the world in the way it has to create, the way people have to use phone, the how earpod, iPod, everything is there, you know. So the gadgets made the life attractive. There are some false stories around that, why he created apple and why half apple and all that. And I'm not going to the hoax of the story because we are talking about scientific thinking today. India is great because India had this rational thinking. I gave you the example of Acharya Nagarjuna. Logic was more example. Yukti yuktam upadeyam vachanam balakadapi anyatranamavatyajam apyuktam brahmakadapi. Even God comes and tells you, Brahma comes and tells you. Brahma is the God of creativity. Actual PhD. We all have to pray on, not to Saraswati. Saraswati will give you knowledge, learning. Do become rational thinkers, scientific temper, do PhD, do research. You must think about her husband. And her husband is Brahma. That is why he is called the God of creativity, research. And that God of creativity, research says, even if he comes and says some irrational things, you can question him. That is what Bharatiya Veda Shastra says. You can ask him, I don't believe you. Tell me the reason. So you can question God. Don't believe blindly what God says. What a great religion is this. So is it not scientific? Our scientific thought comes from Brahma himself. Yukti yuktam ipadeyam vachanam balakadapi anyatranam avatyajam apyuktam brahmakadapi. Even Brahma comes and tells, don't believe. If a small child comes and tells you, ask him the reason. And if he is able to explain, consider him as your guru. And that is scientific temper. So we need to rationalize. So it is not scientific temper. Beyond scientific temper is rational. English has got a lot of problems because the language has got some limitations. So that is why English we have synonyms. Sanskritam we don't have synonyms. Yukti is the one word which will, if you translate Yukti in English, you can see wonderful collection of words. And those words all together is what is called a scientific temper. And in which probably India had that scientific temper starting from the first Prime Minister. And then we had a great article which, I am also a law student, I did my LLB from Usman University. We study scientific temper and the fundamental rights of human in India. The fundamental duty of human being in India. If you have little rational, read article 51A, the closure H. It shall be the duty of every citizen of India to develop scientific temper and humanism and the spirit of inquiry, ask questioning and reform. What a great word used. We must salute Indira Gandhi for inputting this as the 42nd amendment in 1976. And there are some more things which small amendments added to that with the J and L and all that, I think. I don't remember all of them. But this I studied for my exam when I was doing my LLB. Right? So what happens in our life? The scientific temper can be viewed with the bigger lenses, shorter lenses, wider, and the policy resolution which we had. From 1958, the scientific policy was published. And that is how we started thinking about the scientific temper. And today we continue with the discussions. And I'm sure with that discussion, I'm sure Utsahin is doing a great job of making people to think. The open-mindedness, the ready to welcome the new light. Om Bhur Bhuvaswahat Savidurvarenyam Bhargot. The light is there everywhere. Unless it is there inside you, science is there everywhere in the textbook. Unless it comes inside you, enlighten yourself. Greatest scientific temper. Ahara Nidra Bhaya Maithunani Samani Chaitani Nranam Pashunam Jnanam Naranam Adigo Vishosho. That knowledge has to be there. What is knowledge? Open mind temper. Understand, learning. Experiment yourself. Opinion on anything what is happening around you. Being a social being. Yukti Yukta Mubadeyam. I told you that. So this with Yukti, this is what is to be done. It's amazing communication skill. Questioning ability, don't question. Ask questions. Observe. Understand. And when you understand, discuss, argue, analyze, judge, criticize, compare. All that happens, the process happens internally. But what happens to people? They stop. Because that's how the teachers tell them. Keep quiet, keep quiet. DrTPS in my class never asked children to keep quiet. I say shout as much as you want. Discipline has to be there. The discipline comes from internally. And that internal discipline comes when yama, niyama. Niyama is internal discipline. So that internal discipline has to come. When you have to have explain things, you need to have an internal discipline. Otherwise words will not come in the sequence. Interpreting things, you need an internal discipline. Applying that into science, internal discipline. Have a perspective, it's your attitude. And empathize with the people, a social compassion which you have. All this happens only when you have a self-knowledge. So developing the self-knowledge, but not copy from somewhere. That will come only when you internalize your knowledge. Internalizing knowledge comes only when you ask questions. So it's not belief, it's intellectual honesty. What questions you have, keep asking. The curiosity, the humility, the open-mindedness, the objectivity, the intuitiveness, the critical thinking. All that, including risk-taking. Sometimes you have to have that courage. So that fearlessness is what I was studying. That altogether is what is called scientific thinking. I think I have spoken enough. Good enough. Thank you, Namaskaram, and thank you for this opportunity given. Thank you, Utsahin, and Namaskaram.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, TPS sir. I'm sure you are always there with us, and we'll have one more detailed session. I don't think 15-20 minutes from you is sufficient for us to have the stomach full. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. We have noted many points.
To share my perspective as a science teacher today on this platform with such eminent speakers. is really my honor. I don't know if I can do justice, but I will try my best. So today our first speaker, Garu, started with a classic example of Socrates, stating about the fact that science, philosophy, creativity, spirituality are not separate, but they all go together. That will develop the scientific temperament in everyone. All those are not different, but all that should work together in order to get the scientific temperament. And so next he emphasized the fact that what can be experimental need not be science, and what cannot be experimental need not be not science. So that is one takeaway which I will have with me forever. And the 5 W's and 1 H, sir shared with us as to where, why, what, when, who, and how. Those are also going to be the takeaway for all the teachers. I think from tomorrow, teachers will start working on that, all the teachers. And the 3 apples example was also classic, sir. And India, sir also emphasized that India has already has the rational thinking developed long back. Even if our tradition, our culture itself says that even if a child answers questions, treat him as good. So that has already been always there with us. And we have to view the scientific temperament with bigger, wider lens, with an open mind, and experience science everywhere around us. So one very big statement which is going to stay with me forever is that don't question, but ask questions. Really wonderful way of putting that. And last, I would like to conclude by saying that the Sir's Yama and Niyama, that is also one more very learning thing for teachers to take into practice. So wonderful listening to you, sir. And scientific temperament is nothing but we should have our own perspective, internalize our knowledge, ask questions, develop intuitiveness, and have courage, and all these together, all the qualities together will develop scientific temperament.
Good evening, dear Utsahins and esteemed guests. It's my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this special occasion. Firstly, I would like to extend my hearty thanks to our guest speakers, Dr. T.P. Shashikumarji, who has given a beautiful message on developing scientific temperament in students and everyone. I would like to call him spiritual scientist because he blended Vedanta and science, breaking the myth that scientific temper is not against religion or it's all about atheism. It sees the concept of God in a different light. And for the enlightening examples and the call to action, he spoke about the intellectual honesty and self-inquiry. Thank you for ending on a spiritual note. Vedanta says that you can even question Brahma, the creator.